Welcome to the video solutions for the NCFE Functional Skills English Level 2 Writing Sample Paper 3. In this video, we will go through the questions and you can get a better idea of what you want your answers to look like, as well as what to look out for when planning your answers. So to start with, we have two topics that we're going to need to write about in our two different responses within this exam. So we've got a television show and dog microchipping. So we know that we're going to have to focus our responses on these two topics, and we're going to have to include some specialist words about those topics as well. So let's take a look at what you will be marked on. You will have to present information and ideas concisely, logically and persuasively. What does this mean? Well, information means any facts, and ideas means any opinions or sort of thoughts that you have. You'll have to present these concisely, which means that you'll have to present them in a way that isn't too wordy and wouldn't become confusing to the reader, in a really simple sort of logical way. And then we have logically, so you have to think about how you're going to organise your information and ideas so that they are in a sort of easy to follow logical order, and persuasively. So any ideas and opinions that you have, you're going to want to try and convince the reader to agree with you. You want to present information on complex subjects clearly and concisely. So that means that when you've got a complex topic, you need to make sure that you're not getting confused and everything is crystal clear and easy for the reader to understand. You should use appropriate writing style fit for purpose. So you need to really carefully read the question to find out the purpose of the writing and think about the text type, as this will help you determine the purpose as well. And then you need to adapt your writing to that purpose. You need to use a range of sentence structures, including complex sentences and paragraphs, to organise written communication effectively. So that means that your sentences need to include multiple ideas and link ideas together. And you need to use paragraphs so that your answers are divided up in a really logical and easy to understand way. You also need to punctuate written text using commas, apostrophes and inverted commas accurately. So that means that you will need to use accurate punctuation, so you need capitals and full stops, and you also need to be able to use commas and apostrophes and inverted commas, which means quote marks, effectively and accurately throughout your answer. Finally, you'll need to ensure that your written work is fit for purpose and audience, with accurate spelling and grammar that support clear meaning. So this means that you need to carefully identify the audience in the question, and then you need to decide whether your writing needs to be formal or informal, and what kind of audience you're writing for will really determine the tone and the style of your writing. So let's take a look at the first task. The first thing that we're told is that we need to write a letter. So we've got the text type that's been identified there. Now when we're writing letters, we need to use a range of organisational features, including the recipient's address, the sender's address, the date, and a polite greeting and a sign-off at the end. You have seen an advert for a television show searching for participants. Write a letter to apply for the television shows that gives a detailed explanation of why you or a friend would be suitable for their show, uses language that will persuade the producers, and uses a suitable format. And then we've been told that a document has been provided that contains useful content we may want to use. We can also use our own ideas. So We have seen an advert. We're not writing an advert, we're writing a letter. That is our text type. And we need to give a detailed explanation. So we need to give reasons why either ourselves or a friend would be suitable for the show. So you need to think about what the show will be about. So for example, is it a quiz show and you're really, really good at quizzing? You win pub quizzes all the time. And you need to use language that will persuade the readers, the producers. So our audience is producers of the show, and we really need to be focusing on trying to persuade them that we are the right fit for this show. We also need to use a suitable format. So that means we need to organise the letter effectively. It's really important to plan your answer before you get started, and we know that we have a document that can help us to plan and come up with some details that we might want to include. So the document that we've got here says, "Be on TV, BBC, Eat the World." A brand new BBC series is looking for people who love home cooking. We want to find people from different communities all over the UK to prepare their favourite national or regional dishes in their own homes and share their stories. This series is a celebration of Britain through food. We hope to meet home cooks and discover the different cultures and cuisines that thrive throughout the UK. We want to hear about customs, family traditions and personal stories. And then we've been given an address that we can apply to. So we could use this prompt if we wanted to. You don't have to though. If you don't know very much about cooking or different cultures and dishes, if you're not much of a foodie, then you don't want to be trying to use this. Write about something that you know about and you can include specialist words about, and you won't run out of any ideas. So now let's take a look at a model answer to this question. So we've got the address of the sender here and the date, and then we have the address of the recipient, so the person that will receive the letter. Dear Sir or Madam, I am writing to put my friend forward for your television show Eat the World. You said in your advert that you were looking for someone who loves home cooking, and that exactly defines my friend. She is originally from Japan, so she has a rich cultural background to draw on that is wildly different from the UK in terms of culture and cuisines. One of the many reasons I am suggesting her for the show is that she is a world-class expert in making dishes like sushi and gyoza. Additionally, I feel my friend would bring some much-needed diversity and passion to the show. This is because her family has been passing down recipes for generations, so there is a long line of history behind the dishes, creating a sentimental aspect to her story that would work amazingly on your show. Why would you not consider her? She has an exciting range of television experience already, with knowledge of behind-the-scenes processes and a comfortability on camera that cannot be replicated. Looking forward to hearing from you and seeing my amazing friend on your show. Yours faithfully, John Smith. So let's consider how this answer meets each of the marking points. So one of the criteria is focusing on punctuation. And we've got accurate punctuation throughout this answer. So every single sentence that you write in your exam needs to start with a capital letter, and sentences need to finish with a full stop. You'll also need capital letters for proper nouns. So proper nouns include things like names, so we've got John Smith there, places, so we have Leeds and Birchett Street, and also the names of companies or organisations, so Tigress Productions there. We also have commas that have been used in the answer, and commas are really important to separate out different clauses in sentences, so separating out different ideas within sentences or adding further details. So a good example of this is that she is originally from Japan, so she has a rich cultural background to draw on that is wildly different from the UK. And then we have a comma to add a bit more explanation here. in terms of culture and cuisines. So make sure that you're adding some commas to add some additional information and ideas to your sentences and to link your ideas together. We also have some quote marks that have been used here around the name of the show. This just shows that this is the name of something. You would also use this for things like articles. If you had the name of an article, then you would use quotation marks around that. We've got parentheses in the second paragraph, and this is used to add a little bit of extra information. So one of the many reasons that I'm suggesting here. So it's not a crucial part of the sentence, but it just adds that little bit of additional information using some parentheses. We also have a question mark used to ask a rhetorical question. Why would you not consider her? So that question has been used quite persuasively there to try and get the reader to consider this friend for the show. And we have an exclamation mark that has been used at the end. And this adds a little bit of excitement to the piece and adds a little bit of passion. So you can tell that the writer is really passionate about his friend being on the show. So try to use a range of punctuation to creatively create some effects on the reader. But make sure that you're using capital letters, full stops, commas and apostrophes correctly. These are the very basics, and they will help to show the examiner that you know how to use basic punctuation effectively in your answers. Next, we'll consider grammar and spelling. So the grammar in this answer is really strong, and we know this because when we read through the answer, all of the sentences make sense. Make sure that you read your sentences out loud when you're practicing your answers to make sure that everything is very clear to the reader and makes sense. And during the exam, make sure you check through to see if all of your sentences make sense on their own. You'll also need to spell words accurately and try to include some trickier, more specialist words. So we've got some specialist words for the topic that have been used here. So for example, we've got sushi and gyoza because we are talking about food from different cultures, and those are quite difficult words to spell that have been included in the answer. Make sure that you check your spelling after you've written your answer and try your best to practice if you struggle with spelling so that you'll be prepared for your exam. Good spelling, punctuation and grammar is really important to ensure that all of your writing makes sense, and it carries quite a heavy proportion of the marks, so make sure that you are practicing and getting to grips with using spelling, punctuation and grammar effectively. We also need to consider how long and how detailed the answer is. So sometimes we'll be given in the question a word count to use, and this might be in the document or in the question itself. Here we can't spot a word count anywhere, so what should we do? Well, we should try to include enough relevant details to fully answer the question. We want to address that entire question. And generally, it's a good idea to try and write anywhere between 3 and 5 paragraphs. So we have 4 main paragraphs here and then a shorter one just to give a summary. So this is a perfect length to give enough detail to answer the question. Let's take a look at the question again to remind ourselves of the details that we need to include. So we need a detailed explanation of why a friend would be suitable for the show. We need to use language that is persuasive, and we need to use a suitable format. So we want to provide a detailed explanation, reasons why they will be suitable for the show. And we're looking for people that can share their stories and prepare these dishes. So they have to be good at cooking and good at storytelling. And they want to discover different cultures and cuisines. So it's a good idea to try and focus on someone that comes from an interesting culture and will be able to cook a range of cuisines. So we've got details all about that's included in this answer. So making dishes like sushi and gyoza, and also passing down recipes for generations and creating a sentimental aspect to her story. So that's very good for the storytelling aspect that was mentioned in the document there. And then we've got a little bit about previous television experience, which is also persuading the reader that this friend will be really great for the TV show. So it's a really good idea to use the documents, and you can even quote them to add some details to your writing. You can also add additional information or explain your ideas with reasons to add extra details, but make sure that you are focusing on the question throughout. Don't include any irrelevant details and don't go off topic. Use a plan and generate lots of ideas using a mind map before you start writing your answer. This will help you to make sure that you have enough ideas and your answer will be detailed enough. Now let's think about formatting and organisation. So when we're thinking about formatting, we need to be thinking about the text type, and we've hopefully got a reminder of this here. So we're writing a letter. Whenever you write a letter, you will need the address of the sender, and this needs to be in the top right. You'll also need the date underneath that. You then need the address of the recipient, and if you've got their name, then include that as well. And this needs to be aligned to the left and underneath that other address there. We then need a polite greeting, such as dear sir or madam, and we need to be using paragraphs throughout the answer to divide up different ideas, different points. And then finally, we will need a polite sign-off and the name of the sender. Your sign-off will either be yours sincerely, if you know the name of the person that you're writing to, or if you're writing dear sir, madam, you don't know the name of the person you're writing to, then you should use yours faithfully. So just make sure that you memorise the layout of a letter, just in case you're asked to write one in your exam. You could also include a range of other organisational features to show the examiner that you know how to organise your writing effectively. So for example, you could use a bullet point list to explain the different types of dishes that your friend knows how to create. Now let's consider whether this answer is cohesive. So when you're trying to make your answers cohesive, you need to be linking sentences together and joining up ideas within your answer so that they all flow on from each other. In this answer, we have sentences that flow on and are linked really well together. So for example, in this third paragraph, it says, additionally, I feel my friend would bring some much needed diversity and passion to the show. So here we've already used a connective word to link it to the previous paragraph and say that we're going to add some information here. Then we have talked about diversity and passion. The next sentence follows on from this to give an explanation. So it says, this is because. So it's referring to the points that were made in the previous sentence there. And it says, this is because her family has been passing down recipes for generations. So there is a long line of history behind her dishes, creating a sentimental aspect to her story that would work amazingly on your show. So in this sentence here, we're giving a variety of reasons why the friend would bring diversity and passion to the show. And then the next sentence, the next question is connected to this, saying we've got all of these different reasons why she would work amazingly, so why would you not consider her? So can you see how that paragraph has sentences that all link together to provide a sort of cohesive argument there? And you should be trying to do that in your own answers. We also have paragraphs that have been ordered logically. So we've started by introducing what the letter is going to be about. Then we have various reasons why our friend would be a good candidate for the show. And then we move on to talk about that in more detail in the next few paragraphs, talking about her cooking experience, then her family, and how her story can bring a kind of sentimental aspect to the show. And then we talk about her TV experience. So we're working through different reasons why she should be considered. And then we have some appropriate concluding lines and a sign off at the end there. So make sure that when you plan your answer, you think about how you're going to order your paragraphs. If you think about this carefully, then you'll be able to order them in a logical way that allows your answer to flow, and it will make your answer really cohesive. So now let's think about the language and register that has been used in the answer. Now, your writing wants to have the right kind of tone and style to match up with the audience and purpose given in the question. And this answer is really well suited to the purpose because it satisfies all parts of the question and focuses on persuading readers that this person's friend is suitable for the TV show. It's also suited to the audience. So if we go back to the question document, we can see that we are to apply to Tigress Productions. Now we don't know the name of this person, so we are going to use Dear Sir or Madam and write to that company using that address there. We need to be respectful and formal in this writing because we're writing for a professional group. We're applying to potentially be on a BBC documentary here. So we need to remain formal throughout in order to persuade the reader and get them to take us seriously. We're writing to professionals here. So we have standard English throughout the answer and we have formal vocabulary. So rather than saying, I think it would be great if my friend could be on TV, which would be quite informal, we've got written, I am writing to put my friend forward for your television show. We also don't have any slang words or contractions in the answer, which would make the answer a little bit less formal. So there's no contractions like can't, won't or don't in the answer. So we've got a generally quite formal style, but we do have a couple of informal elements, and these are used to persuade the reader and try and engage them. So generally we would use exclamation marks in more informal texts, but here we're really trying to engage the reader and it's not too informal to use just one exclamation mark in this answer. We've also got persuasive techniques that have been used throughout. So the purpose of our answer is really to persuade the reader that our friend should be on TV. And we have persuasive techniques to do this. So we've got direct address. We're addressing the reader directly as you, and this really draws the reader in. And as we said, this exclamation shows that this person feels passionate about their friend being on the show. We also have this rhetorical question here, why would you not consider her? To try and convince the reader that she should be considered for the show. So whenever you are presented with a question, think about whether you're trying to persuade someone or inform someone and use appropriate techniques to do that. Finally, you should be making sure to use some longer sentences that contain multiple ideas or pieces of information. This will show the examiner that you can connect different ideas together. So for example, in this answer, we've got, this is because her family has been passing down recipes for generations. So there is a long line of history behind the dishes, creating a sentimental aspect to her story that would work amazingly on your show. So this sentence does make sense, even though it's really long, and it's broken up using commas for the different ideas. We also have a connective word in here, so we've got because in there, and we've got another connective word, so. These connective words are designed to provide an explanation. So we're explaining why we feel our friend would bring diversity and passion to the show, and we've got different ideas that have been connected here. So her family has been passing down these recipes, and this means that we've got a long line of history behind the dishes. And then we have an explanation of the effect that this will create. It will create a sentimental aspect to her story. And then finally, we've got this connective phrase, that would, in order to show the effect of this. So that would work amazingly on your show. So we've got multiple ideas that have been connected together using commas and connective words and phrases there. And you should try to use commas and connective words to connect ideas in your own sentences. Make sure that not every single sentence is this long though, because we want to be using a variety of sentence lengths to create different effects. So immediately after this long sentence, we have quite a short sentence, why would you not consider her? Which is really impactful, asking a rhetorical question there. So overall, this is a really effective answer to the question. It addresses all of the points that we were given, and it includes things about preparing dishes, sharing stories, and discovering different cultures and cuisines. It's been addressed to the correct person, so we've used that address there to apply in writing. We've also adapted to the purpose by giving a detailed explanation of why a friend would be suitable for the show, and we've used persuasive techniques such as rhetorical questions in the answer as well. The format for the answer is also suitable. So it's formatted correctly for a letter, and we've got all of the different formatting features that we need included in there. Spelling, grammar and punctuation are all accurate throughout the answer, and punctuation has been used creatively to try and create specific effects on the reader. So we said we've got that exclamation mark there, for example. So overall, it's a really effective answer, and you should try to replicate this kind of thing in your own exams. Why not have a go at writing your own answer to this question? And you can use this answer here for inspiration. Once you've finished writing it, make sure that you check over your answer to see if everything is really clear. You could even give it to a friend or a family member to see if everything makes sense to them. And then have a look at the marking criteria again and see if you are addressing each of the points. Next, let's take a look at the second task. So the second activity is to write an article. Remember that you have to complete both of the activities in the question paper, and each activity will have a different text type for you to have a go at. So we've already written a letter and now we're writing an article. So an article will usually be informative, and it will sometimes include opinions as well. Articles need headings, and they can often benefit from subheadings and the author's name. So let's see what our article needs to be about. There is a problem with stray dogs in your area. You recently attended a community meeting and found out that since April 2016, all dogs must be microchipped by law. Write an article for a local newsletter that explains the local problem, gives your opinions on the change in law, persuades dog owners to adopt your way of thinking, and uses an appropriate format. And then we've got a document that might help us, and we can also use our own ideas. So the topic that we need to write about is stray dogs in our area. So we're writing this based on a community meeting, and we found out a new law. So we might want to include that detail about that law there in our answer at some point. We're writing for a local newsletter, so we need to be focused on the local community. So we might want to come up with a name of a town and explain the specific problems about stray dogs in that specific area. We need to explain the problem, so we need to give details about what's going on, how many stray dogs are there, why are they there, what are the problems that are leading to stray dogs being on the streets. Then we need to give our opinions on the change in law. So the change in law that has been specified up here is that since April 2016, all dogs must be microchipped. So you've got to give your opinion on that, and you might also want to explain your opinion with reasons so that you are being persuasive. You need to persuade dog owners to adopt your way of thinking. So Yep, we need to be persuasive here. We need to be using persuasive techniques and trying to encourage the reader to agree with us. And finally, we need to use an appropriate format. So make sure that we are writing using all the formatting features that are necessary for an article. So before we have a look at an example answer, let's take a look at the document that has been provided for us to get some inspiration that might be helpful when we're planning the answer. So we've got meeting notes from the meeting that we went to the community meeting, and these are the notes that we've made here. So compulsory microchipping saves time and money for animal charities and local authorities. So microchipping, saving time and money is something we might want to consider in our answer. You can get it done for free at any Dogs Trust Centre or pay for it at any vet. So there is a free option and a paid option. It proves who the dog owner is and reunites lost dogs and owners quickly. So these are all benefits that we might want to talk about. It doesn't hurt the dog, and thousands of dogs continue to be lost or stolen, lots of strays. So we could use those notes to inspire our answer. So let's have a read through the answer and see if you can spot any sort of persuasive techniques or any really great use of language in this answer as we go along. Stray dog situation solved through simple solution. Anyone who has lived in Leeds for some time knows the stray dog catastrophe we have unfolding before us. More than 50 dogs have been seen running through the streets with no collars or owners to identify them. They are now even forming sub-packs and starting fights with other dogs on leads. This simply cannot continue. With owners reaching breaking point, one poor dog owner spoke to me about the issue, saying, "I'm scared to take my tiny Jack Russell out these days as he's at risk of being attacked by the stray dog packs." Desperate over the rapidly worsening situation in the area, I attended a community meeting on the issue and found out the law has thankfully recently changed in our favour. Since April 2016, dogs are required by law to be microchipped. While some people may be against putting a foreign object into their beloved pets, this law is massively helpful to the cause. Not only can you get your darling dog microchipped completely free at any Dogs Trust Centre, but it also does not hurt the dog at all. It can swiftly reunite lost dogs and owners and ultimately saves the taxpayer money. This is because local authorities get to spend less precious time and money housing stray dogs. I would highly recommend getting your dog microchipped, not only for your own peace of mind, but to be part of a community effort to get these dogs off the streets and into the safe, loving homes that they deserve. So this is a really great answer for a range of reasons. Let's start by taking a look at the punctuation that has been used. So in every answer, you need to make sure you've got capital letters at the start of each sentence and full stops at the end. Remember that you can also use exclamation marks or question marks if that is relevant. So we've got a question that has been used here. They're asking whether the stray dog situation can be solved with a simple solution. We've also got other punctuation. For example, we've got the use of quote marks here to give a quote from a dog owner. And we have a contraction as well. So we've used an apostrophe to change I am into I'm. Remember that whenever you're making a contraction out of two words, you put the apostrophe where the missing letter or letters are. So in I am, the missing letter is A, and that would be between the I and the M. We've also got an exclamation mark to emphasise that this is a serious issue and to show that the writer is getting quite emotional about it and they are very much engaged with the issue. So overall, we've got really great use of punctuation. We've also got some commas being used in the answer, and these are used really effectively to add additional information and separate out different parts of sentences. So for example, we've got since April 2016, and then we would take a breath if we were reading it out loud, so we need to add a comma in there. And this is known as a clause before the comma, and then we have a separate clause after the comma. So dogs are required, comma, by law, and then another comma, to be microchipped. So we're adding little bits of information. That by law in the middle there is another clause that we have added in to be microchipped. So adding additional information using commas. So overall, lots of different types of punctuation used really effectively in this answer. We've read through the answer and we saw that all of the sentences make sense on their own. So the grammar in this answer is really strong. The spelling is also accurate. And we've got some specialist words, some more difficult words to spell. So for example, we have rapidly, worsening, and situation. They're all quite difficult words, difficult phrase there. And then we have words like thankfully and recently that might be slightly harder to spell than some other words. And then foreign as well. So try your best if you know how to spell some specific words that might be a little bit more technical or a little bit more difficult to spell. Try and include those. But make sure that if you're not sure how to spell a word, you try and come up with a different word that you do know how to spell, because inaccurate spelling can lose you marks in the exam. The answer is also really clear. All of it makes sense when we read it out loud. So each sentence is simple enough that it makes sense. It's nice and concise. So we're not repeating any information. We're not adding anything that's particularly confusing in there. So we know exactly what the writer is trying to say in each sentence. The answer also contains an appropriate level of detail and it is an appropriate length. So let's have a look and see if we've got a word count for this question, because you need to make sure that if a word count is given, then you are sticking to it. We haven't got one for this question, so we need to come up with our own length. Generally, it's a good idea to try and write about 4 longish paragraphs or several shorter ones. Here we have 3 paragraphs, but they are particularly long and detailed, so this is an adequate answer for the question. All of the details that have been included are relevant, and the whole question has been addressed. So we've got some detailed information about the positive aspects of microchipping, a good explanation of how microchipping can help to get dogs off of the streets and why this is a positive thing. It's a good idea to try and use the documents that have been provided. So we have this document here has given lots of different details that have been used in the answer. So for example, it's explained that you can get your dog microchipped for free at the Dog Trust Centre. So we've used the document to include that detail, and that it does not hurt the dog at all. And then we've got some other facts that have been included that come directly from that document there. So don't be afraid to try and use the documents for some inspiration if you're getting a little bit stuck for details. The details that we've got in here include a statistic. So we've got the fact about the law as well, that we've been told to write about. And we also have a quotation. Now this is a really great, interesting detail that you can add to any articles that you write to give various opinions and ideas. You can just make these up. You don't have to provide any names or anything for them. So for example, we've just got one dog owner here. So overall, we've got loads of great details in our answer, and we've got a good explanation of the issue as well as how it can be resolved. The answer is also formatted correctly. So when you're writing an article, you need to make sure that you're using a heading, and you also need to use paragraphs. It can also be a good idea to include the name of the author and possibly subheadings to break up the text into sections, but as long as you've got a heading and paragraphs whenever you're writing an article, that will be fine. You could also try to be a bit more ambitious and try to perhaps use a bullet pointed list, or you could use numbers if they are appropriate for the task. Remember that using paragraphs will help you to make your answer cohesive. So this means that everything is joined up together and everything's written in a really clear and logical order. So in the first paragraph, we've identified the issue of stray dogs in Leeds. And we've also explained some of the negative things that are happening in the local area, some of the bad things that these stray dogs are doing. So for example, they are starting fights, and some owners are at breaking point as a result. They're scared to take their dogs out. So then we move on to a slightly different topic, but it's related to the previous one. So it explains that they've attended a meeting about this problem and found out about the laws surrounding these stray dogs and the microchipping law as well. And then in the third paragraph, we go into more detail explaining the benefits of microchipping and how it will resolve the stray dog issue, because it helps to swiftly reunite lost dogs and owners. So all of these paragraphs flow in a really logical order. We've identified the problem, we've explained a potential solution, and then we've gone into detail about how that solution is going to make a positive impact within the community. And this is a really great structure to the answer. As well as making sure that paragraphs link together cohesively, the answer uses a range of punctuation and connective words to link ideas together. So we've got commas that add on information throughout the answer. So for example, we've got with owners reaching breaking point, and then we've got a comma to add a new idea to that sentence. So one poor dog owner spoke to me about the issue, and then we have another comma there to separate out the sentence and link to the quotation from the owner. So the different parts of the sentence follow on from each other in a really logical and cohesive way. We've also got lots of connective words. So for example, we've got while at the start of this sentence, and it explains that while some people may be against putting a foreign object into their beloved pets, then we have a comma, this law is massively helpful to the cause. So while has been used here to show the alternative opinion that some people might not like microchipping, and then to suggest that, well, these people are wrong because this law is very helpful. We've also got another connective word here. We've got but that has been used. So not only can you get your dog microchipped completely free at any Dogs Trust centre, but it also does not hurt the dog at all. So we're adding information here. We've got the use of that word also as well to connect information together. So overall, it's a really cohesive answer with all of the different parts of it linked together really effectively. The language and register that has been used in the answer has the right kind of tone and style to match up with the audience and the purpose of the writing. So whenever you read through a question, you need to identify the text type, so an article in this case, as well as the audience. In this case, it's the local community because we're writing for a local newsletter, and also the purpose. So we need to explain the problem, then we need to give opinions, so state our views on the topic, on the changes to the law, and then we need to persuade the dog owners to agree with us. So we've got 3 different aims there. And this answer definitely fulfills those aims. So we have an explanation of the stray dog problem, and then we have our opinions about the law, saying the law has thankfully recently changed in our favour. So that word thankfully is suggesting that they agree that the law is a good thing. And then finally we have an explanation, a persuasive explanation of why they think dog owners should agree with them. Because it doesn't hurt the dog, it can reunite people with their dogs quickly, and it saves money. So all of these positive facts have been used to persuade the reader. And we've also got phrases like I would highly recommend, to try and persuade the reader to agree with their opinion. So overall, it's really well suited to the purpose. It's also really well suited to the audience because we have focused on a specific local community. Remember that we're writing this for a local newsletter. So they have specified that they are writing about the Leeds area, and they have spoken to the community, bringing them into the answer and saying that they are a collective, saying that the issue affects us. And we've got various language techniques to persuade the community that our opinion is correct, that microchipping is a good thing. So for example, we've got this quotation here to really make the reader think about the issue and the impact that it's having on the community. So this really negative language like scared and attacked feels quite emotive, so it engages with the reader's emotions and persuades them that something should be done about this problem. We've then got in the final paragraph the alliteration of darling dog to try and persuade the reader that the writer really cares about your darling dog. So we've got that direct address to the reader being used there. So try to persuade the reader using a few different persuasive techniques. So overall, this is a really fantastic answer. We've got sentences in which lots of different ideas are linked together to make the sentences more sort of complicated and to draw ideas together. Everything flows in a really logical and cohesive way to provide an effective answer to the question. The answer addresses all of the points that were asked in the question, including an explanation of the local problem, opinions on the change in law, and persuasive techniques to try and get dog owners to adopt your way of thinking. The answer is effectively adapted to the text type as well. So we've got a title that is needed for an article, and we've also got a range of facts and opinions that we might expect to see in a local newsletter article. The spelling in the answer is correct throughout, and we've got a range of punctuation that has been used correctly and effectively. So overall, this is a really fantastic answer, really well suited to the audience and purpose in the question. Now have a go at writing your own answer to the question and try your best to align with the marking criteria. Make sure that you're spelling words correctly, your punctuation is correct, and your answer is really clear and cohesive.